The Hunter Biden stuff is bad. It's really bad. I don't mean the plea deal per se, though. If it turns out that because of this whistleblower stuff and these other things, if it turns out that like DOJ knew there were other strings to pull, um, that lead to these larger corruption charges, and opted instead to cut a plea deal, um, in order to put sort of the Hunter Biden issue to bed, that would be really, really bad. We don't know that yet. I mean, the amount of confidence that people have about what actually happened, um, people are getting way out over their skis, much like they did with the other camp did, but the Russia collusion stuff. Um, it's really kind of funny how so many people seem to think because Hunter said in a text message that he was sitting across from his father when Hunter was trying to shake down some Chinese business guy, and he was saying, "I'm sitting here." It's not exact. I think it was just suggestive, but it was pretty obvious what he was suggesting. He was saying, "I'm sitting here with my dad, and my dad is listening in, and he's in on this. And if you don't come through, we're going to make it really, really bad for you." Blah 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 blah. Um, I don't think you can rule out the possibility that Biden was in the room when Hunter Biden was texting this, but I think it's really unlikely. um, or at the very least, I think it's really unlikely that like Biden knew what Hunter was actually texting. Not because I think Biden is like some incredibly honorable, decent, ethical guy, but just because a text like that is so incredibly stupid. And the number of sort of Newsmax OAN fever swampy people who are like take it as a given that Hunter Biden, who in other contexts they're constantly pointing out is like a gangster scumbag, grifter, drug addict, are all of a sudden taking the position. But he must be honest in his text messages to Chinese shady characters at all times. He would never lie in a text message about whether or not his dad was with him. Now, again, even if just saying, "Oh, Hunter was lying," Biden's defenders say, "Well, obviously Hunter was lying. There's no evidence that his dad knew anything about all of this." That is a very, 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 very minimal defense, and it doesn't. It's true. All right, it's fair as far as it goes. It just doesn't go very, very far. And I think if I just like one of the worst forms of punditry is, what if this was Trump or what if this was Bush, that kind of thing. Um, and it's not because it's always wrong, it's often right. It's just also so easy. Um, but obviously, if they had uncovered a text from, Don Jr. or the other one, I can never remember what Uday's name is. But if they found a text from, Ivanka or Ivana, saying pretty much exactly the same thing, I think Rachel Maddow would take over every hour of the day on MSNBC and make it into the only story in America, right? The New York Times would lose its mind. We'd get, you know, 4 hours of Morning Joe freaking out about it and all the rest. Now, that would probably be an overreaction too, but it'd also be more legitimate than what we're hearing from that same crowd when it comes to Hunter Biden. Um, uh, I've been perfectly consistent about this for a long time. I think Hunter Biden is a shady, scummy, broken guy. He's sort of a tragic figure. Let me put it this way: if I were a Biden, part of the Biden family, he's a tragic figure, right? I have a certain amount of sympathy for families going through the problems of having, family members who are drug addicts and all that. But big picture, he's obviously corrupt. Now, whether his corruption extends to, you know, felonies, that has to be proven. But just as I think, well, it wasn't proven that all the Trump collusion stuff. I mean, there was more Trump Russia collusion stuff than um, Trump's defenders want to concede. If you actually read the Mueller report, but there was far less than people like Adam Schiff and that crowd um, claimed there was. Right? It was much grayer. It certainly wasn't the grand Manchurian candidate kind of stuff that people bet their lives on or anything like that. Um, and similarly, but the point I always made was, after the Trump Tower meeting, you can no longer claim that um, they wouldn't be willing to work with Russia, right? I mean, like the people who would say, "How dare you suggest that Donald Trump would sell out his country and work with a foreign power?" And blah 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 blah. It's like I always thought that was sort of silly to begin with, but then after the um, Trump Tower meeting, where we had it on record that basically they were looking to collude with Russia, um, never mind what happened later with the first impeachment. Um, the willingness was there. Similarly, I think um, you just have to work from the assumption that Hunter Biden was willing to do uh, whatever it took to feed his habit, to make money, to keep the hookers coming, and and I just don't think at this point you can. I think you can hold out the possibility that Joe Biden was smart enough and careful enough and lawyerly enough not to get deeply involved in any of this stuff. Um, but when he says, my son did nothing wrong, that's a dad move at minimum. It may also be a political lie. Um, uh, and but the idea that, as Biden has said a bunch of times, that he didn't know anything about any of these things, he never asked um, Hunter about what he did when they went on these foreign trips together and all that kind of stuff, or foreign trip together. Um, yeah, I think you just, as a matter of skepticism, I mean, like you have to assume that Biden's lying about that. There's just simply no reason to take his word for it on any of this stuff. And um, we'll see how the media goes with it. We'll see how Republicans can always overplay their hands.